Are you a Pisces? Do you love a Pisces? Or maybe you want to know more about Pisces so that you can get along with them a little bit better. Well, understanding the essential oils that make them move can be a really powerful way of making a change in a Piscean life. Today, myself and Elizabeth are going to dive into our favorite oils for Pisces. How are you today, Liz?
I'm excited to do this, Adam. I really enjoy thinking about the medical astrology of Pisces and also about how they can kind of have specific fears that control them and how we can help them with essential oils that will help them with those kind of shifts to move them out of those sticking points of their life. I think it's a really interesting way to look at vibrational aromatherapy.
As we've been working through this series, I must say a big thank you to all the patient Pisces. They are the last sign of the zodiac, and probably with any series or any book, they always have to wait until we hear about all the other 11 and then it's finally their time. But at least they get to be the finale. But when we look at this, I introduced the idea that each zodiac sign represents an aspect of life. And of course, Pisces is those final years of life. And some say that Pisces almost have one foot on this reality and one foot in on the other side, as though they kind of dance between the heavens and the earth type of thing. And I think if you know some Pisces in your life, you can kind of relate to that. Now, they are very dreamlike, they're very spiritual, they're very magical, they're very in touch with their emotions, in touch with other people and the global consciousness of how the world's doing as well. But I also find that they have this amazing ability to be quite magical. And sometimes when you meet a Pisces, they are a little bit off with the fairies, or maybe they're leaning a bit more into the other realms and not so much in this realm. But at the same time, I've seen Pisces where I'm not too sure how they are able to tie their shoelaces. But when it comes to buying crystals, they've got wads of cash. I'm like, how on earth did you earn and get that much money? They just have this ability to manifest and succeed in this world. They just seem to get it from a higher realm. Does that make sense?
I love that. I only really know one Piscean really well, I think. But that's a good description.
Yeah, they really are. They are so sweet in their behavior as well. And this kind of leads me to talk about my first essential oil. I'm going to throw a doozy at you, but it's called Kuromogi. Now, Kuromogi is a Japanese essential oil. Comes from a rather kind of boring looking shrub, but the essential oil and the chemistry of this essential oil is absolutely fascinating. And it has such a peaceful kind of influence on you on a practical, physical level, but also on an energetic and emotional level. And it really captures that dreamlike, peaceful, blissful energy that the Pisceans cultivate and wish to kind of emerge themselves in. So I think anyone who wants to really align with Piscean energy or celebrate their Piscean energy, working with Kuromogi, just popping it in the diffuser is a really beautiful thing to do. But also wearing it, it actually is hard to get as an essential oil because it's so popular in perfumery these days. Um, so wear it as well. But it will just help you to kind of dive into the deep oceans that Pisces are always wading around in.
So spell it for me. I've never even heard of it. How do you spell it?
So Kuromogi, Kuromogi.
And what is it?
It's a leaf oil from. I'll have to send you some information on it and do some more videos on it. But it's almost has this beautiful. I'm trying to. I should have known off the top of my head the chemistry, but I don't. But like I'd normally diffuse it at night or whenever it's been a stressful day. It just brings you back to that state of peace and ease. It's absolutely stunning, and it's been kind of an up and coming essential oil out of Japan.
Is it a doTERRA oil?
They have done a short run of it. In DoTERRA, Japan, but because it is so hard to get, because the perfume industry nabs it all, they were only doing a limited run of like little 2.5 ml bottles. So a lot of people, even in doTERRA, haven't experienced it.
Interesting, interesting. I don't suppose you know the Latin name.
Not off the top of my head. We'll have to pop it in the notes
How
for.
well I know you. How well I know you. Well, we'll have to do that work and put that in the description. But that sounds lovely. And finally, why have you not sent me any of this oil? That's beautiful.
Oh, it absolutely is kind of thing. And so doTERRA, I've talked about it before, has this other great blend called Shinrin-yoku, which is a blend of
Oh yeah,
different oils that kind of creates the same. And I know I've gifted you that one. It's
yeah.
very much when you diffuse it, it mimics forest air. And Kuromogi
Oh,
almost has similar chemistry to the Shinrin-yoku blend in that that just helps the whole body regain balance and homeostasis.
yeah, you bought me that Shirin-yoku bath oil when you came over, didn't you? And my sister took one look at it and went, "I'm having that." I was like, "Oh, are you? Right, okay." Then handed it over. But she always tells me how beautiful that is, and I have to say, she's got the most sensitive skin in the world, and that's why I had been sort of reluctant to use it because I thought, oh, there's quite a lot of sort of pines and stuff that might affect my skin a bit. And she's like the most delicate flower, and she uses it really, really easily. So a really hearty endorsement for that particular product for you. So what else you got?
Okay, well, I think probably the epitome of Pisces would be another oil that is very, very spiritual. Now, we know that Pisces is a water sign, they're in touch with their emotions. So I normally work with floral oils for the water signs. And there is no more watery flower than Blue Lotus. Blue Lotus, of course, is that epitome of spirituality. It's connected to so many different gods and goddesses in different traditions. And I think it's a really beautiful one for first of all allowing Pisces and that us everyone to connect with that Piscean spiritual energy. But I also think that what's really beautiful, it has a kind of a twofold effect because the blue lotus doesn't grow within the water, it grows upon the water. And when we work with blue lotus, it can help us with emotional mastery. Of even though sometimes our emotions can get the better of us, and that can be very troublesome sometimes for Pisces. They can almost drown in their emotions or the amount of emotions of other people. Blue Lotus allows us to rise above that and to kind of like if someone's kind of making waves in a lake and the Blue Lotus would just bob on top, it would be unhindered by that. It's also aquaphobic, so it repels other liquids, so it doesn't take on the emotions as well. So I think it's kind of it helps Pisces with that spiritual aspect and for them to connect with that, but also helps them navigate what can be a weakness to them, where they can take on the emotions and the feelings of other people around them, but also the global consciousness of. And when we look at some of the things that are happening in the world right now, for Pisces, that can be a lot to take on.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think for Blue Lotus, because as you know, this is one of my favorite oils, and written a course about it. The the sort of presiding thing that it does is remind you of the beauty in the world. And as you say, for a Piscean, it's like I'm getting dragged down, 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 down. I'm taking on all of the vibrations of everything going on around me because they are the empaths. And they kind of swim in a sea of not really knowing what's theirs and what's anybody else's. And as you say, Blue Lotus helps you to rise up above that. So although you say it sits upon the water, actually it sits above the water. And I think that's a really beautiful recommendation. For a similar reason, I would say rose, because I think when you think about, I think every sign's got a particular sort of dispensation to a fear. And for Pisces, it's fear of rejection, fear of being alone, fear of finding somebody to love, fear of or unbearable to be able to watch other people suffer. I mean, it must be awful every time sort of an advert comes on for the war at the moment, or for about Gaza or Israel and all of the different things that are going on there, or the RSPCA, because it's a visceral feeling every time. And I think Rose is very good for just being able to say, here's your cuddle. There's just there's so much love in the world. Feel the love, allow that love to kind of cascade over you and sort of drown out the noise of all that suffering that you feel. Somebody once said to me that being a Piscean is like having to walk through the Catholic purgatory. as somebody's died, and it's that waiting space where the souls are screaming. And I was like, whoa, that really puts a picture in my head of how bad it must be. I'm an empath and I feel stuff, but I don't feel it on that level. But the people that I've watched going through stuff, it's really awful for them to be able to see other people suffer. So I think Rose, just to kind of surround them in love and remind them that it's not as bad as you think it is out there.
Yeah, definitely. Any of those beautiful, gentle, especially florals, I think really can support Pisceans. Now, when the harsher aspects of life do start to take the toll on the Pisces, this is where they kind of fall into their negative traits. Two that they're really renowned for: one, escapism, wanting to just not face reality, and sometimes, we want to get that healthy level where we're informed but not overwhelmed about things that are happening, not just in the global sense, but just in our lives as well. And sometimes Pisces in their personal life, if it's getting too much, they'll just want to escape. They'll want to pretend and not talk about it, and so on. And that can be a problem as well. And also then, because they things can be, you know, hurtful, painful, and so on, they can become quite needy and actually, form unhealthy attachments, just clinging to anything that could possibly offer some refuge or some solace or some peace in that type of way as well. This is where, oils like sandalwood, I think, are really beautiful. Sandalwood is still a really great spiritual oil, but of course, being a wood, it's very grounding. It allows to kind of ground the overwhelmed Pisces. And as we know, it's a parasitic plant, or hemiparasitic plant, I should say. And it actually reaches out and connects with other plants to get different nutrients that it requires, things like sodium and potassium. And so what happened is sandalwood teaches us to find healthy connections and to ground ourselves by tethering ourselves to what will serve us rather than tethering ourselves to just anything that may drag us further down the river and cause us more strife and peril.
Such a good recommendation. And I have been really working with sandalwood myself over the past few weeks. It's kind of going to destroy the whole video at the moment, but I think it is really relevant. That I was really thinking about how, like, the Epstein files are like an egregore, that they kind of require the energy of everybody else's attention to kind of grow in power, but also that they act like a pendulum. So this is like reality transurfing talks about pendulums, about how you kind of can choose the reality that you're in, because basically reality is what's going on in your head, but a pendulum is designed to push you off your kind of direction and kind of go over here, this is a distraction. And I really felt that the Epstein files were acting like a pendulum to really take everybody's sort of ascension vibration off and kind of take us back into a really horrible negative place. And so I really was working with sandalwood oil of just saying, right, okay, sink back into yourself and try and stay on your own path. Don't get drawn by that. Don't get pulled under by the negativity of everything else that's going on, which is absolutely bang on what you're talking about. You're talking about it just from a Piscean perspective. But yeah, I agree completely that sandalwood knows about things that are parasites, like auric parasites, or, mood hoovers, if you like, because it is one. It knows how to do it. And it's very, very clever at being able to show people, to show, I know how to exist on something else and to feed off something else just long enough that it won't kill it, because if it kills it, then I'm dead. And when you think about that, of the way that we are influenced by the algorithm and all of these pendulums of kind of needing us to keep giving it information, giving it attention, then yeah, sandalwood is really good for that. So yeah, that translation into the Piscean endeavour is clever.
You stuck in a little term there that I've never heard before. Mood hoovers. I absolutely love that. That's amazing. As
Mood
you've been
hoovers.
working with sandalwoods, oh, sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, I've got 2 or 3 friends that just are particularly like that. And for a long time, I used to think I've got to just, be supportive for them. And I'd walk away and go, but where is all my energy? And it took me a really long time to understand that they were like hoovering all of my energy. They were being parasites, and they would walk off great, and I would not. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Now, as you've been working with sandalwood, of course, there are different sandalwoods from around the world. There's Iliahi or Hawaiian sandalwood from Hawaii, Indian sandalwood, and then Australian sandalwood. Do you lean towards one or other when you've been working with it? I would tend to probably recommend Iliahi, the Hawaiian sandalwood, for the Piscean energy. It's got a bit more of a feminine, gentle energy, but do you have a preference?
Well, I did go and buy some Iliahe because I know that it is your very, very favourite. But no, I really like Australian sandalwood. I really like it. So that is the one that I have been working with myself. Yeah.
Now, the final oil, I actually have a couple of oils that I was kind of toying around with for Pisces when they are getting a little bit overwhelmed. The first one, cilantro leaf, or some people may call it coriander leaf. So it's not the oil from the seed of the plant, it's from the leaf. So it's got that real fresh green. Now, physically, really, really powerful when it comes to detoxification, especially with things like heavy metals. And so you've heard me say once, and I'll say it many times again, what an oil does physically, it does metaphysically as well. And so getting kind of detoxing the heaviness, especially emotional heaviness, I find cilantro to be really, really great. So Pisces working with that to kind of do an emotional detox can be really great. The other one that kind of came up as well, and I'd love to know anyone's feedback on this. Please shoot me an email or pop a comment below. Celery seed. I am fascinated with celery seed, but just like you and some of the Australian oils, Liz, it totally hasn't flung the doors open and shown me all its mysteries yet. I became really fascinated with celery a few years ago because I like to allocate all the different oils to all the different zodiac signs and the different planets. And I was trying to find oils that are associated with Neptune. And there's some obvious ones like seaweed, absolute, and so on, and other plants that kind of grow near water. And then I kind of noticed that celery was kind of sacred to Neptune. And then it was not soon after, or it was pretty soon after, I should say, that I was introduced to celery seed essential oil. I was like, wow, that's got to be a Neptune oil because celery does require lots of water to grow. It contains a lot of water, so it has this real oceanic energy. What I have found about celery seed, and it's really hard, you find real skint little passages in other authors' writing as well. It does stop that comparison. It just kind of embraces wholeness. It sees it all as one, but it can also help with connection and intimacy, and really good when there's two partners that aren't seeing eye to eye on a sexual level to help them kind of find their parallel. But I also find on a greater level, celery seed can help us to all kind of connect with each other and find those common points and those common threads where we are interlinked in that web of life. That sometimes when we are disconnected from that kind of spiritual oneness that Pisces seeks, celery seed is the one that can kind of ground us back into that connection and show us that we're more similar to each other than we are different from each other. Does that make sense?
It does. Specifically, what were you looking for a comment upon when you asked when people comments on?
Yeah, what their experience with celery seed is. A lot of the other oils speak to me and I kind of fully get their energy, but I get flashes of insights about celery seed, but I'd love to know what anyone else has found working with it on that emotional or spiritual level, if they've had any insights on what it's really good for.
It is one of my most important essential oils. So I did a video a few weeks ago. If people want to check out my channel about essential oils for energy field clearing, and I talk about how, because I am an empath, and actually I specifically talked about the mood hoovers in that video. This was something that I really had to be able to get a grip upon, because I would go, especially when I first moved to the country and I felt so much better. And I went back to the city to go shopping because you can't shop here, it's ridiculous. Go back to the city and I would be like, no way, how this is how I felt all of the time. really, really depleted. And it was like people were walking through my etheric field and just going, I'll have a piece of that, I'll have a piece of that, I'll have a piece of that. And I wasn't even needing to talk to people. I was just giving my energy away all of the time. And I was like, I have to get a handle on that. And I had originally thought maybe juniper might be a solution, but I'd read something that my mum had written about it, protecting your etheric field and being able to be useful if you're an empath. So I was like, right, I've definitely got a cruddy bottle at the bottom of the box of this. I'll go and find it. And the next time I went into Birmingham, I was just like, this is just a different world. I'm completely protected by everything else. So to me, I would say it helps me to live in the world with everybody else in a way. I do think that this idea, I quite often talk about when you're protecting the etheric field, it's about being able to say, this is mine, this is yours. And the Piscean endeavor is like, no, we're swimming in everybody's. Well, I find that difficult. So celery seed is a really, really great recommendation, because I find that's exactly how it helps me to be able to say, no, everybody out. This is just me.
Oh, I guess celery seed would be really great for Pisceans when they are drowning in everyone else's energy and finding it hard to
Yeah,
handle. Yeah,
yes,
beautiful.
exactly that.
I'm Elizabeth Ashley, UK Director for the National Association of Holistic Aromatherapy and founder of the Aromatic Mystery School, where essential oils meet the deeper, more mystical side of healing. Here you'll explore the spiritual, emotional and energetic dimensions of plants and learn how to weave them into your own rituals and well-being practices. If you're ready to work in a way that nourishes both your soul and your senses, join us at the Aromatic Mystery School. The link's right below.
Right, medical astrology time. What do you got for us?
Oh, I just am fascinated by this. So Pisces, there's some stuff that's really obvious. There's some stuff that's really illuminating. So, as we can imagine, Pisces is a water sign, so it affects the water of our body. In particular, we're talking about the lymphatic system. We're talking about how the lymphatic system affects immunity. And then we're talking about something called interstitial fluids. Do you have any idea what an interstitial fluid is?
I believe there's small sacs of fluid around different joints that allow joints to move more with ease. Am I right there?
It's pretty close, but definitely not sacs. There, it's the fluid that holds the sacs, basically. So, for example, when it's surrounding all of the different cells. It surrounds, like when you've got the fascia of the body, it's the fluid that goes through the fascia of the body. And actually, it's the more accurate description of how essential oils work, because for 30 years, I've said, right, we apply essential oils onto the skin. They go through the skin into the bloodstream and circulate that way. Actually, no, they don't. They go through the skin into the dermis and epidermis, and they spread through the interstitial fluid, and then maybe go through capillaries into the bloodstream. That's how they get into the bloodstream. So we can consider it to be the inner atmosphere, if you like, of our body. So if you imagine that we're a person and we live in this atmosphere of oxygen, if you were a cell, there is oxygen in the system, obviously, but actually their inner atmosphere is the inner interstitial fluid, which is fascinating to me. And so Pisces rules that. Now, if you think that is, it's easy to imagine that it is fluid, and it is fluid, but it's not about circulation. It's actually a communication system, because it's how the hormones, the astrocytes, or the glia and everything talks to each other through this fluid. So you can imagine that that's very Piscean, because it's like all of the communicational stuff going on everywhere, all the way and around the body. That is really, really Piscean. So if that goes wrong, that's a bit crap, right? Because it's kind of everything goes through that. So I'm just going to kind of ignore that and kind of go, right, we're going to focus from a Piscean point of view on lymphatics, because if we've got lymphatics right, then immunity is right, and the swelling of the body is right, and yeah, so we can kind of pull everything into one archetype. So the interesting thing about the lymphatic system is, unlike the circulatory system, it doesn't have a pump. So the blood supply relies upon the heart to move it. The lymphatic system doesn't have anything. It relies on good muscle tone. And if there's something that affects that, then everything else starts to fall apart. And since it has a bearing on the immune system, everything's trickling down. So within the Piscean archetype, keeping an eye on the lymphatic system means that's the gear that will keep you healthy. And so the sort of 3 oils that I would talk about in terms of moving lymphatics, and that is cypress, fennel, juniper. No surprises there. Interesting that I said that I thought about juniper in terms of protecting my field, but celery seed was better. So we've got that overlap. But also in terms of keeping the system free of infection, then I would say tea tree, clove, manuka. Those would be the sort of main areas that I would think about with Pisces. The lymphatic system and keeping the immune system really healthy.
I love that you shared cypress there. I think cypress is, one of the key words whenever we talk about cypress. The word flow keeps coming in, and it's really important for, I guess, like Pisces, they are the sign of the ocean. The ocean must keep flowing. They're not the sign of the pond. And anything, if they become stagnant in the same emotion, if they get stuck in an emotional replays in their head or around negative energy that's starting to become stagnant like a stale pond, cypress is a great one for just, it's about emotional liberation. It gets rid of grief. It gets rid of any pain that we're holding on to, and then brings new life. And I think it's really important for Pisces to stay in the flow. And just like our lymphatics, if we're not moving, if we're not changing our environment, if we're being very sedentary, our lymphatics suffer, and Pisces suffers as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And if we think about these things, excuse me, dear, if we think about this interstitial fluid and how it goes through myofascia, through the fascia, if the myofascia becomes constricted, then the hyaluronic acid that exists within the interstitial fluid just can't move. And that's why we get awful pain, awful stiffness. And juniper is really by far the best agent for breaking down that, to be able to get into the myofascia, to be able to break down the uric acid in the muscles, and to flush it all out. So if you're doing like sort of deep massage, then juniper is really great for really getting deep in, but also flushing out everything at the same time. Because, as you say, you can do this work and then it can stay stagnant. And stagnant is really, really bad for somebody that is a Piscean.
Now, I know that you love to pop oils in the bath, and Pisces being a water sign as well. Would you recommend some of these, not the hot oils that you mentioned, but some of the other oils being really great for Pisceans, just to dim the lights, light a few candles, pop a few oils in the bath, and just submerge themselves in that? Would that be a good practice for them?
Yeah, so cypress, fine in the bath. Fennel, fine in the bath. Juniper, fine in the bath. What you're going to have to check, though, is contraindications relate to your body rather than the bath. So, for example, fennel, and actually all of those I would be reluctant to say to somebody who was pregnant, for example. Fennel in particular is estrogenic, so that would be dangerous. But certainly safe in the water situation if you are past 16 weeks. No, actually, if you're not pregnant. What else did I say? Tea tree, manuka, and what else did I say? Can you remember?
On Blake now, there was a third one in there, wasn't there?
Yeah, I think probably. I think it was probably
Clove.
clove.
Yeah, it was clove.
I wouldn't want clove. I wouldn't want clove in the bath. Tea tree in the bath, fantastic. Manuka in the bath, fantastic. Again, as long as past 16 weeks pregnant. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're giving you a whole range of different oils for the Pisces zodiac sign, and we'd love to know if you are a Pisces or maybe you've got one under your roof as well. Did some of these oils resonate, or do you have another one that we've totally missed and you think is a very good option for Pisces as well? Pop them in the comment section below and we can continue that conversation on there. But that is the end of our Zodiac series. Now, me and Liz have noticed over the last few weeks as we've been recording these that there are some single oils that we forgot to do a deep dive in. So over the next few weeks, we're going to go back to our old format of just taking a deep dive into some really beloved oils that deserve a lot more attention. And then we're back into the magic and we've got lots lined up for you. I think we've got a wish list of, I don't know, 100 different topics to cover, Liz, haven't we? So we're going to be around for a while anyway. But we'll see you next week with another great video. Until then, take care and blessed be.
Bye-bye.
There's a lot happening in the world right now. There's wars, there's financial pressures, there's health concerns, and all of this can be quite overwhelming. Just open up social media and you're going to be subjected with all these different things which can kind of drag you into more and more gloom. I've been reflecting on this recently, and then I think about when I just step out my own back door and immerse myself in nature. Nature helps us to find peace, harmony, and to put everything into perspective. Recently, I've wanted to try and help people to engage a bit more with nature through different gifts of nature, such as essential oils and crystals and so on. But being able to stretch out and reach people that way is often through that overwhelming social media. So I've come up with a solution. I've created a collective, a community where we can all gather and we can share our experiences with our oils, with our crystals, with nature, as the animals sing and dance and talk to us in different ways. And I'd like to invite you to join this community. It's called the Living with Nature Collective, and it is available to you to come in and interact and meet like-minded people. Our life is generated by what we give attention to, and it's time to start giving more attention to nature in a way that you're not surrounded by other barrages of information. I'd like to offer you a 7-day free trial for my new collective, and if you look at the link below, you can click today and check it out. Come in, introduce yourself, meet other people, and be able to experience live classes, pre-recorded classes, conversations, polls, work out what's happening astrologically, what crystals are the best for you right now, and have your questions answered by me and other experts as well. I'm really excited to launch this new initiative of the Living with Nature Collective, so please check out the link below, come say hi, and I look forward to seeing you there.